Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 62nd episode of the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shadybunny. Shady, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Collins. Thank you for asking. How are you today?
I am. I need to turn you up first of all, but I'm doing all right. I guess. I don't know. I'm okay. I guess. I have no feelings for this particular day.
No feelings.
Yeah.
So could be okay. We can get back to it later. Maybe there's some feelings near the end of the podcast.
Yeah, maybe. Currently, none whatsoever. So maybe that'll change. But generally, that doesn't matter. My feelings, whatever. But we've got a episode for you today. Not really like crazy. I wouldn't say this is like the most content packed episode. There's some things to talk about. I think that things we are talking about are like fairly important, but there's not like a lot of them, so shouldn't be like too stressful or anything. We always start with our weekly overview. It's near the end of the month, so for some of us, we're like, trying to qualify for the next Lobby Legends. It's like number 5, number 6 now. It's getting kind of standard. So like, as crazy as maybe the first couple, I'm not really seeing a lot of like movement near the end or like near the end of the month as maybe I saw in like the first like 2-3 Lobby Legends. So it's not as like crazy to me. I don't know. That's how I feel, at least in NA. I don't know if that changes in EU or anything, or if you're even looking at that at all, but that's been my
It's
experience.
it's been I guess it's mainly through the lens of what I'm experiencing. So
Hmm.
for me, it feels pretty busy.
Okay.
But I haven't been like super keeping track of, oh, that person wasn't there yesterday or this or that. I'm not looking at the leaderboards as much. But there's a lot of there's a lot of people in contention. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
There's like the last weekend, right? Tomorrow and the day after, it's gonna decide a lot. Like I think RDU is like top 16 right now or so,
Something
with
like that.
probably but like not like a huge lead, and he's just coming back from holiday, so he's playing tomorrow as well. So it should be really fun for the viewers the next 2 days. Lots of people that are close.
That's fair. I'm not looking at the EU or Asia Pacific leaderboards. I'm just looking at the NA leaderboards, and the NA leaderboards is so dry. And there's like, to be fair, like Beater's like 17th or 18th, right? So I don't know if he's playing, but he hasn't moved in a couple of days. So I'm like wondering if he's even trying. But like, from what I've seen, like no one's moved in like the past like 4 or 5 days. I don't think the positions have changed at all. It
Uh,
like you could tell me that the NA leaderboard is frozen, but it's not. It's not frozen because I'm moving. I'm moving when I play, so it's not frozen. But at
yeah.
the cutoff position is not moving at all. Like people aren't really playing too much or changing their overall placements. Like the thing is, you can play all day and not move, right? So that is
Yeah.
doable very easily. So that
I mean,
could be happening.
to give you to give you a taste of the EU leaderboard, right? If you go to the second page, the three first names are JJ, Zixo, and Be Nice. So you know they're going to be playing, right? You know they're going to be
Yeah.
pushing. So that alone, right? That you have three people at the top of the second page of the leaderboard that will pretty much guaranteed put in the time and are absolutely contenders. That is very cool. And Soren, right, is also on the second page right now, just playing a ton. Max 7K, Xedin, Element Omega. Chief is just having some fun on EU, apparently, right? He's
Yeah,
on there
Juice
as
playing
well.
EU.
Element Omega. So that's just page two, right? And then obviously page one, there's a lot of people in that region where they're not really safe yet. You've got Babo on. Like right now, I think top 18 qualifies on EU due to Oliak having 2 accounts in the top 16 and Advo being in the top 16 as well. So around that top 18 range, we have 13K, but then we go as far up as rank 13, and that's only 13.2. So that's not like a huge chasm. So you've got like rank 13. That's not feeling super safe. Let's see where it starts at rank 11, where we have 13.383. So that's a bit of a gap. That's like a 180 gap between rank 11 and 12. So it feels like 12 and below, that's all fair game. Right? It's gonna be open season. So yeah, should be a great last weekend. Lots of action.
Yeah, for the NA leaderboards, just looking at it, it's very. First of all, it is very stacked. Like I recognize every single name, except for maybe Yellow. But we were talking about Yellow last month, that he just like so. He's proven himself. But every other name is like instantly recognizable. There's a couple people like trying to make it like Beater, like Mint. Harane's like super close. Dog's kind of there, but on the cusp of it. I was rooting for him, but I think he kind of is chilling now. But pretty much like the top 16 in there are just like stacked players. So it's kind of hard. It's hard to overtake those players, right? Like you gotta, if you anyone you take out is like deserves to make it in, right? So it's hard to be like, oh, I'm gonna knock, Kurt out, who was like there last time, or Ken out, or Beater. Like, it's a tough ask.
Yep.
But it's always interesting to kind of see how things go at the end. For me personally, like,
yeah,
I'm pretty much chilling. I have told myself I shouldn't play because pretty much every single month, I do it every single month where I'm perfectly in. I have to do nothing, but I find it. I don't know. I find it very boring to play on an account that's like, 8K, 9K, whatever. Like where I don't feel I'm gonna put in the time to climb it to top 16 before the reset happens, right?
Yeah.
So it just feels like I'm just playing for no reason, like just to kind of stream or whatever. Yeah. So I do that for. Is that what? Go for it.
I was gonna ask. So, is that something that you want to say? It's a shame that I didn't put in extra time on the other account, or are you just like, nah, I don't really want to bother? Or is that something for next reset? You're like, okay, I want to go this time. The moment NA is looking really good. I want to go hard on EU, so I have something that I'm invested in.
Nah, I don't care. Like, first of all, like you really only need multiple accounts if you don't make it on the account that you commit to, and that's really not been my case. Really, every time I've made it on the main one. So
peace of mind, right?
Yeah, and with the knowledge I know, I don't really care too much about like divesting the time in multiple accounts. For reasons such as another. It's expensive and whatnot to put your time in all those. So I've just kind of been focusing on the main, and I mean, I do think if I really wanted to, I could definitely climb 2 accounts. Like I don't think that's like an issue. There's definitely been some months or some seasons where like I'll look at the rating, and I've basically like spent a month and I've gained like 200 MMR, or maybe like I'm down to 300 or something for the whole month. The whole month I've been playing like 300 games or whatever. I'm down 100. That's if I just put that time on a different account, right? Like that account is already like 12K already, right? Where I do think early in the season you can really work 2 accounts without too much of a hassle. Where the later you get, like the more effort it takes, right? Because like if I were to climb an account to like 14K now, that would probably take a while, right? Like you have to play every day for like
the
a month.
counter argument is that you almost can't lose, right? you go up without trying.
Yeah. I agree. Like there's
Like you look at a win and you're like, 90? Really? 90 points for a first place. Like,
yeah.
a top 8? Less than minus 100? What the fuck?
I do so agree with you when I'm playing on a lower MMR account and like you're like trolling and you go 8th and it's like minus 80 and you're just like, what? Minus 80 for a loss? Like and you go like, oh, if I did this on my main, it's a minus 140, right?
Yeah.
And then the win is like plus 100, plus 90 for a win. Like it's like
you
it's
look
very
at the-
equalized. Yeah.
You look at the end of like a mediocre session and you're up 300.
Yeah.
You're like, what? I'm not going, what? No, this is negative MMR.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be down. I'm up
Exactly.
300. So that's been my experience when you level up the second account. It's you get to the point where the games become more relevant in terms of number wise pretty fast. Like those like wherever the leaderboard's at, if it's at, like let's say 12K or whatever, you'll be at that 11K pretty fast. Like it's usually like that last K that you have to like, all right, let's
Really
put
grind it, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, before that, it kind of just, assuming that you are a player that, is
Assuming
already...
you are good, I hear you, Shady.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like, what? Okay, so apparently the last kit, like everything else but the last 1,000 comes on its own. Like, assuming you have
it must be so, like, weird, like, if you're, like, actually grinding your main, right? You're just listening to us, like, oh, you get, like, 13K for free, and then it's that last, like, 13 to 14. The actually, and then you're like looking at your account, you're like 9K or something, which is like very good, right?
Yeah,
and you're like, what the hell is Shay talking about? I'm trying so hard, and they're just saying you get it for free apparently if you're
clearly Shady isn't playing in Elo hell where people are leveling wrong and dealing extra damage to the match.
Yeah, I agree with you though. I don't think I would like struggle too much to get the account. It's just that I don't enjoy the first like 2 weeks of it. Maybe, the first
the game. I understand in terms of what's at stake, right? I do get that, but the game quality is honestly
the game quality is fine. Yeah, I'm not saying like
it's purely not invested enough because
I don't even mind rolling noobs, Shady. Like that is fine for me. Okay. I don't have an issue if I can't recognize the names of my opponent. All right. It's just that like you get scot-free off of so many things where it's just like, oh, I should be dead here, and then you're just like, oh, I don't die, right? There's no punish or anything like that. There's been a lot of games when I'm playing it or climbing where I'm just like, this shouldn't work. Like, this shouldn't work.
Well, I mean, the game I don't think it's necessarily that you can suddenly employ all kinds of strategies that would normally get you a top 8 on your main account. Because once again, I feel like the game.
It's not that I'm employing strategies that would get me a top 8. It's that I'm winning with like 37 HP. You know what I mean? Like that's instead of like winning at like 8 HP, like I don't lose those 2 fights. So I just like win with so much more HP. So and then when you're like doing well with so much HP, you can play crazy, right? Because you're like, oh, I have a loss.
Yeah.
And it's just like you get to do like such stupid things, and it's fine because like you can take the loss, right? So if you go down like 20 something, you're just like, okay, I still just destroy them. So. That window, there's no stress. That window of like weakness, if you're playing like a good hero, it's like there's none of it. Like it's when you're playing like a bad hero, then you're just like whatever. Like
this reminds me when you're talking window of stress. Today I had this lobby which was insane. Probably the most stacked lobby that
2 lobby legends winners and
yes,
Be
you
Nice.
were there. Okay.
No, I
yeah.
wasn't there. I heard you talking
okay.
about it with Be Nice.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we had Max and Be Nice. So 2 lobby legends winners, not just players, winners, right? Soren and
Soren,
like,
yeah.
Right. So half the lobby was front page.
A regular NA game. That's what I'm gonna tell you.
Sure, Collins. Yeah, copium. So the it was so cool to see that when top four rolls around,
It's all of
it's
y'all.
us four, right?
Yeah,
So
it makes sense.
that was such a beautiful moment to point out. Like, chat. There's definitely some RNG in this game, but there's also definitely some skill to it. Look at this shit, right? Like, so that was really cool. So those lobbies are really fun to play. Um,
Uh,
I got 88 for winning that lobby as well. That was sick.
nice.
So many points. That usually doesn't happen.
It,
Uh,
it's so evident when I'm playing that obviously like good players will do well because you play against a streamer and then it's like us top two, and then since there's top two, they're in your next game, and then it's top two again us, and it's just like, oh, okay, like and then you play a game and then like finally one of us is like third or fourth, so finally they're not in my next game, but you just know if we top two again, oh, here we go, I have to play with them again, and it's so annoying because when you're playing against those opponents, that there's a chance you get blown out, right? Like they raise the chance to get eighth by a considerable margin, right? Because if you fight them at the wrong, maybe not eighth but seventh, right? Because if you fight them like as soon as someone dies and they're like high rolling you, like you can just get blown out, even though you're like in a good position to do well. So I always find it annoying. Like I don't know, like
no, for sure. Yeah.
people always talk about, oh, I love fighting these people in my lobbies. I'm like, no, get them out. I want to climb, and they always cause me issues. So I'm not a fan of that. But
So it's two sided. I think in terms of quality of the game and like having to really try and all that, it's really cool. But when it comes to cut and dry gaining points, you don't want them in your lobby because
yeah,
chat tends to ask, right? Like, isn't it good? You get more points if you win. It's like, yes, but I was explaining when XQN was in my lobby. It was a very good example because exactly what I said could happen is like if he's having a good game and you're having an okay game and you hit them at a bad point, that can be an early exit, or in this case, I just got very, very low because their board is going to be really, really bullshit if they're having a good game because they'll be able to manipulate, their economy and their timing, and their spikes are higher. And even if they're not spiking higher, they know then to get the double Leroy double manted bullshit. That's the other part, right? Like you might be having some fun, you still have two Orgazoas on your board or whatever, and they're already double Leroy double manted, and you're like, I need to be all in already.
yeah. Also, that argument for they give you more points doesn't work if you're higher MMR than them. By the way, so they're looking at me like, oh, I'm a bag of
Wait,
points.
it applies though, right?
But not as much, right? Like it's beneficial for them to beat me versus like they
Yeah, but
beating us.
only minor, I would say. I think
Yeah.
it's calculated by average MMR of the lobby, right?
It's so much easier to just get in the lobby without them at all. Like
No, I
the
agree. I
MMR
agree.
gain does not make up for it at all. I
I'll
must
put
say.
it that way that they're probably also not too excited to see you there, unless they're on a Smurf
I
or
hope
whatever,
so.
right?
they
Yeah.
they better
So,
be afraid.
all
They're like, oh,
right.
Collins free points. I'd be so sad.
So sorry about that, by the way, guys. I still have a bit of a cough. Collins is through it, so I try to mute in time, but it'll sneak in here and there.
No worries about that. We really this is a whole topic in itself, but
Yeah, we're basically near the end of the podcast already. It was good weekly overview. All right, let's move on.
no, but I do think it's always interesting talking about because I didn't make a topic about uh like the end of the month anyways,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah. I
this
think
kind of
that's
covers
fine.
it. Yeah,
Yep,
pretty
yep.
cool.
So TLDR is it's going to be a good weekend
I'm
for you.
camping. That's my
For
TLDR.
you.
Though
Yeah,
I
you're chill.
though I don't it's not that fun for me, but
Oh, I guess I didn't say how I was doing. I'm in contention this time.
oh,
So
okay. Good.
my last 2 weeks, my last 2 months were very I would say a bit of a blur
You just say
where
like
it's
300
like,
MMI. Okay.
yeah, I'm in contention, so it's possible for me. And I just had fun playing. I was actually very close to 13 at one point today, so dropped a bit after that. But overall, still a solid week. I came from below 12 at one point, so just good
Below
gains.
12. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, you know the feeling, right? I'm pretty
Yeah.
streaky, and like this morning, my start to the stream was second, first, 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 first. So it's like if you have to come from far, it goes pretty fast. If it's just like 4 firsts in a row in a second, so
I know that
uh,
life.
yeah, I have those streaks as well. I think that tier 4 shady has not really died off, but
I'm
especially
killing him. I'm killing him slowly, finally.
it's I'm definitely much more comfortable doing like this is obviously a 6. This is also obviously a 6. This is also obviously a 6. It's basically the default is we're shooting for the moon, and then if we don't quite get there, I have those instinct of like deflector mode engaged to scam the opponents, like
Yeah.
get the kangaroos, get the mummies. But my default is let's try and high roll. So,
Good.
anyways, that's
Good.
it. So,
I'm
yeah,
glad I'm rubbing off on you.
cheer
I
for me this weekend, guys.
I will. All right, we can finally move on after 20 minutes.
Go what?
Oh yeah. I made a video log of the Tice Tavern event. So basically, the Twitch rivals, uh, spokesperson or community member, shared with us all the participants a bunch of their pictures and video feeds, and Shady posted one of the videos to me, like the cool moment where he won the game, and I came congratulate him, and I wanted to share that, but it felt weird, just like I would just post this 30-second clip and say, "Hey, this is cool," and that's it. Like no audio, nothing. Kind of weird. So I figured, let me just take yesterday off and work through all the video clips and try to create some form of story to kind of go over the event. And unfortunately, there was like enough clips for me to use. I was a little bit scared because I would say most of the video was about the other event, the Ultimate Challenger event. So there's a lot of stuff about that. But they did have actually a decent number of the Tice Tavern events. So I just took some of that. We got that one shot with all of the players, except for kind of you. You're like kind of cut out from the shot, but who cares? It's like I got everyone else in the one shot. That's great. So I just spent a lot of time picking it, making sure that it flowed well, and then I voiced over it. So I think it's pretty nice if you haven't seen the tournament, or even if you've seen the tournament. Honestly, like I enjoyed looking through the videos. I was like, oh, I didn't know about that, or I didn't know about that. And it was kind of cool seeing all the people in the crowd and everything. So I had fun making it. I think it's good if you just want to have like a quick like 9-minute overview of the event. I didn't really talk about the games themselves because we talked about it on the 64th podcast, right? The live one. So it felt unnecessary, and it also would take too long anyway. So, I should I really should be able to be like exclamation mark YouTube, but I have none of that locked in. So, you're just gonna have to look for it yourself, or it's on the Twitter. I guess that actually would be the brainless way to do it. But it is pretty cool. I recommend it. I think it's a good. I mean, I made it, right? So if I didn't like it, that's probably a fault on me. But I think it's nice anyways. Shady's seen it. You can recommend it, right?
Absolutely.
No bias here.
I saw it this morning when I was just getting ready, doing my stretching and all that. So I was like, this is great. It's fun to relive it. Yeah.
Also, I felt that I was the only person in that group that would actually make this. I was like, would Would Zorgo do it? No. Would Zixo do it? No. Would Shady do it? No. I was like, oh, there's actually no one else who I think I have any shot of making this. So I guess
I
I
was
have
like,
to do it.
oh, I want this mate, but I don't want to do it, and no one else is going.
Like
That's-
no one else. I mean, I was just like looking through the list. It's like no one else is gonna do this. So let me just do it myself.
No, that is accurate, I would say.
But yeah, it's
Fucking
fine.
BG players just playing BGs, man. What the hell, man?
It's fine. It wasn't too bad. It actually didn't take me as long as I thought. I thought it would take like the whole day, but I kind of like just fully worked on it for like four or so hours and got it. So, but yeah, moving on. Next kind of topic. I believe we actually have some BG news to talk about, which is kind of rare. I would say recently. I think it's been like a month or so where there hasn't really been a patch or anything. So that's like 3-4 podcasts where we haven't really talked about any like meta changes and things like that. Like maybe the meta like evolved over time, but not due to
But not-
them changing
not-
anything.
Yeah, exactly. Not by Blizzard pushing that, right? No, I think it has been Greasebot Stone for a while. So there we go. Let's dive into the patch.
To be fair, this patch has nothing to do with Greasebot, right? So yes, but that's not this patch that we're talking about. So
Sure.
we obviously we're going to talk about the Greasebot change later, but you know this patch itself, nothing to do with Greasebot, which I was very surprised, right, when I initially read the patch, right, like just overview. I was like, oh, what I want to see Greasebot change. Oh, what's in the patch? Nothing, none of that. But yeah, we can just kind of go over the patch itself. So we do have Battlegrounds updates. First things first, new emotes. That's at the top of the list. Most important change, some would say. Starting in patch 24.0, all players will have access to base emotes. Oh, I heard you can squelch. That's more important for me. Yeah. That's what I'm looking at. Like you can squelch, sign me up, right? Like because I know some people like the I'm gonna level the 3 emote, but I don't care. Like I don't mind. I'll just squelch him and move on.
I'm an emote Andy, so
yeah,
no
I know.
squelch.
But they did add 6 new emotes. Some of them are cool. Do you think there's going to be a toxic one? Have you like looked at the emotes and be like, oh, what do you think is screams toxicity?
For me, I mean, it depends on how you interpret it, but
It's a personal thing, Shady. This is a personal thing.
Yeah. No. I have one, the second one, right? I think it's like a loop glass or whatever you call that, right? Magnifying glass.
The magnifying glass. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine if somebody just like deals 15 to you and then uses that to like look at your board like that.
What you doing?
What are you doing? What's going on here? Why are you so bad? So so I can see that one being a little bit just spamming that as you're dealing 15 to someone. What's going on?
I got 2. First of all, the cup of coffee one. Obviously, I think that has troll potential written all over it. You know, like I'm having a good time sipping my coffee, killing you, while everyone else is, you know, just losing to me. You know, cheers. You're saying cheers, but the other person doesn't have a cup. Cheers. And then the second one, isn't that like a gravestone? Like legitimately, like you're dead. Like. You're just like you're killing me with the gravestone.
That obvious, I feel, where it's like, oh, you're spamming the gravestone as I'm dying. Good job, bro.
It's still annoying. I would say.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bit weird that they made that.
Yeah,
yeah. Like making a rip emote that is obviously going to be used as you're killing.
How else do you use this? Like, nice to meet you, gravestone. Like, what this doesn't.
It's more like when you're dying, right? That's probably the less toxic way, or not toxic at all, to use it. Is like somebody kills you and you're like, well, rip, that's me out. Right?
Aren't you like punching the monitor? You're not like spamming the emote, are you?
Multitask, right?
Multitask. Okay, spam the emote, punch the monitor.
Maybe
I can see that. Yeah, but
Yeah,
If,
that's the obvious.
if you do like those, you know, they will be they're available 1 week after the expansion go live. So I think the expansion goes live on the 2nd, right? So on the 9th. So it's still quite a bit off before you start seeing this in your games, but it's interesting that they're looking at emotes for like more cosmetic answers. So
Mhm.
something they haven't done before. We'll see how effective it is, right?
Well, I looked at that and I said, well, this is something that should be, I feel like, applauded, right? Because it's a way, like, you want your game mode that you play to be as successful as possible, right?
Right.
Monetization wise. So I just threw that out because I saw some negative comments be like, oh, they throw out a patch and it's just emotes and blah blah blah. I was like, well, it's good, guys. Like, trust me, like you don't want a game that you like to play and then like kick wait, they're no longer supporting the game mode or whatever. I was like, well, yeah, they weren't making any money off it. So I mean, especially if you compare that to constructed, right? Like the amount of gold and real money that gets thrown at packs, it's probably peanuts. The whatever BG brings in, so it's good,
Probably.
man. Like anything that they can do to, up the revenue like that, it's good.
True. That is a good point.
I mean, and you can mute it. So what the fuck are you talking about, right? You can literally mute it if you
The
don't want to mute.
muting is the best addition for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been asking for that for a while.
Yep.
But there's no auto squelch yet. I'm still waiting for that. I want to be able to load into a game without having to press 2 buttons. You know, where's
Yeah, that's
that?
brutal. Making me press 2 buttons. These people.
Every game, Shady. Like that's a lot of extra button presses that are unnecessary. I think so.
You're talking to the guy who like left clicks his mouse all over the board for fun, right, the whole time. So I do not feel the impact of that. To do that.
Fine. Fine. Whatever.
This has led me to mess up many discoveries, by the way. When I'm just like clicking and I'm just like shit, I clicked something when I was discovering, or so it's not an amazing habit.
Anyways, moving on from the emotes, we do have a new hero. I was actually gonna make a solo topic for this, and I realized, wait a minute, it came out this week. I was like, oh, we have to talk about this hero. You know the when we used to talk about like a hero and a minion.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna put this and like Kermowig in there because I was like, we have to talk about these two.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute, they came out this week. We just put them in the patch overview, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, highest Baron Togwaggle armor tier 1, so no armor. 9 gold, steal all minions in Bob Tavern. Each turn, this hero power costs 1 less. So good hero, I think. Like playable.
Have you played a lot of
I
them
got
or
it
not?
3 in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a strong, I think it's a strong hero where people can maybe go a little bit too hard and kill themselves quite easily, right? When they're like level and level again, and level again.
Well, they're playing it dumb.
I see a lot of 4-on-4 with this. And
That's
it's just like,
they're just playing it dumb. Like that's not
yeah,
anything. That's not a reason. Like that's just people being stupid because it's a new hero. I think after people like figure out how to play it, like the percentages are just gonna go up a lot higher. So
3-on-3 and then hero power on turn 4 and turn 5 seems pretty good, or even
you know something I've just thought about. That now I've like just clicked on my head. You know, anytime they release a new hero, its win rates are pretty high, and then and then like later on it drops down. I think I know why. It's right. It's because all the perk players are like high MMR. You know what I mean?
like that.
Yeah. And then like once you get like the casuals playing the hero, they just throw the hero. You know, and then the win rate equalizes. But then when it's just the perk players playing the hero, it's like, oh, this hero is really good. And like, so obviously the hero is good, right? But like, they're not like throwing super hard. Where once the regular non-perk players are playing the hero, then it's like, oh, you know, I don't know what to do. Let me press the button every turn, that kind of thing. So, I think that does kind of factor in some of because right now, if you look at its win percentage, it's like top 2 or 3 or something like that. So, and I don't think like the hero's like the best. Well, well, you could argue like it's very good, right? Like, and it could legitimately be the best hero in the game, but like I do think there is a higher concentration of good players playing the hero, you know, where they would do well with any above average hero, you know, and there's no like dilution from the non-perk players. So it's something I haven't really thought about, but it does make sense when anytime a new hero is released, it always feels like, oh my god, this is the most broken thing, and then like after like the 2 weeks, and it tones down, it goes like it drops like 5 points like every time. Like that almost always happens, and it's always due to the, I assume the non perk players playing it. So something interesting. But yeah, the hero's good. Like I'm not saying wow, it's only because good players are playing the hero that it's doing really. No, obviously the hero's very strong, but it does affect the win percentages, I think.
Yeah. But aside from that, I think it's hard to look at this hero and say how it's not going to be good. It's
Yeah.
really it's that shop RNG, right? Like, but that's with pretty much any hero. Like, you get shitty shops on any hero, you're gonna suffer. So yeah, this hero really benefits from having a good shop on turn 4.
You,
Um,
you know what my criteria is, and my criteria every time I see a new hero, I ask myself, do I want to play it? And if the answer is yes, the hero has always been broken. That's been like for real. Like every time I ask myself, do I want to play that hero? And I'm like, yeah, hero's broken. Do I not want to play it? No. It could be okay, but it's never like, this is the nutters.
But what I
So
have noticed on this guy, by the way, is that Cali is pretty good.
any economy, like Dark Gaze as well, right? Like is very
Yeah,
strong.
but I mean, Dark Gaze is good no matter what you do, right?
I, I do
Kind of.
I do think Kali is better this meta though. Generally.
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
might not, and this hero came in at the exact same time the meta switched for
Yeah, but
Kali to be
I
better.
feel like that has very little to do with it, because the only reason I say this is because he's so good at buying out Battle Cry shops, right? That's just what I mean.
Sure, okay. I mean, sure,
Like,
whatever. That's fair.
if you're on tier 6, you're being offered 6 units, right? And if 2 of those units are Battle Cry units, that means you're paying 8 gold to buy the whole shop, which is 6 units. So you've paid 2 gold for that whole shop. And then if any of those Battle Cry units also make additional money, like Reef or Murazont, you've paid 1 gold or 0 gold, or you even gain the gold. And that's with 2 Battle Cries, right? Imagine if it's 3 or sometimes even 4 Battle Cries. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, but the hero is just good. And because it can utilize like other archetypes, you know, that just makes it better. But I don't think like you play this hero and you're like force Kali. You know what I mean? Like, so I wouldn't say it's a Kali hero. I just think it's a good hero that like can take advantage of Kali, but it can take advantage of a lot of other compositions as well. Like, because you could say the same thing with like double Naga. You know, you could say the same thing with like Dark Gaze, right? You could say the same thing with Nomi. Like, if you find a bunch of like the ability to buy a shop outright is so broken, and it
It's just
synergizes with a ton of compositions. So I don't really think it's like, oh, it's Kali synergy. Like, it's just a good hero that's can synergize with a ton of different compositions because you can buy a whole shop, and that's really strong.
yeah. The point was that I didn't really want to play Kelly before. Like, now with the Chroma Wing change, like, sure, a bit more often, but it feels like I don't need Chroma Wing to play Kelly on this guy. And on other heroes,
Okay,
I still
sure.
it's a minor point, and yes, I mean, buying out the shop is good for pretty much anything that scales off you playing cards, right? Like you
Kali
said.
is more viable on this hero. I guess that is fair. Like as a point, like other heroes would have a more difficult time, where this hero being able to buy a host shop has an easier time utilizing a Kali for the battle cry. So yeah, that is fair. I just wouldn't force Kali.
No,
Yeah.
but it's like I tripled into it. That's how I felt it, right? Like, I tripled into Kelly. I was like, oh, it's okay. It's kind of okay. Right? It's getting a lot of collateral Battlecry stuff. But yeah, let's move on. The hero overall, yeah, strong. I would say. Like, you can't really go wrong. So for any,
Strong is too mean, right? Very, very good, right? I would say.
Yeah. So the issue with this hero is when you go against this hero on the 7 goal turn and sometimes the 6 goal turn, because almost anyone that knows what they're doing on this hero is going to go tier 3 on turn 3. And
Yeah,
that is because on turn 4 you can hero power for 6 out of 6 gold and get 4 minions. If that happens to be a good shop,
it's so
you can already,
stupid. Yeah.
yeah. So I would say a good metric for a 3-on-3 curve is on turn 4, which is where you usually get 2 units, maybe 3 if you're Galewing or Cookie. You're going to want to reduce damage heavily with your good units, but you're probably still losing against someone that didn't go 3-on-3. Maybe if you had a great shop, you don't. I've seen Togwaggle win that round fairly often because you get to play 4 cards, and if if there's 2 or 3 great cards in there, and you already stabilize. So let's say you go 3-on-3 and somebody goes with you, and then you already stabilize on tier 4. Like we're talking 35 plus health sometimes after going 3-on-3. That is sick, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah,
Another thing with this hero, I think, which is an issue, is it deals too much damage. Like turn
yeah,
7 gold or whatever. Like you can have
you,
a whole board of threes and you're dealing.
you can deal
Like
12 to someone
I've
quite
seen
easily.
15, like turn
Yeah,
7 dealing 15. It's like it's not reasonable. Like what how is that okay where you just deal so much damage? Also, I do think the hero power is like too free once you hit the late game. Like, and another thing, I don't like how it's worded or how it works initially. I don't mind that you can go 3-on-3 and then steal the host shop. Like, I do think that's like,
that's
nearing like, yeah, it's not okay. But like, that is like maybe like the upper end of acceptable. The problem is like, even when you use your hero power, the next one costs 8. It doesn't cost 9. And
yeah.
that's too
That is
crazy.
very weak.
That's too crazy. Where you don't really get a drawback of using your hero power. Like eight go to buy a shop in the late game is crazy good. Like it's always worth almost always worth because like let's say as long as there's like one thing you want in that shop, it's almost always worth because if they have 5 minions, there's one thing you're buying, right? So you're getting 5 minions, but you're gonna spend 3 gold anyways. That's already 8 gold that you're spending. But then you get to sell the 4 back, so you're not spending that much at all. To get the host shop, and then if that shop has any economy, any reroll, any useful unit like a gem or anything, it just becomes so worth. So I don't mind that initial 9 gold. I just think they need to nerf the
Yeah, let
next
it
hero
reset to 9.
powers.
Don't let it reset to 8, basically.
Yeah, maybe reset to 9 or make it like every time you use it, the reset is like 1 more expensive. So like the first time, then the next time it'll reset to like a reset to 9, and then the next time it reset to 10, and then the next time it reset to 11. Right, so it becomes like progressively harder. You actually have to think about when you're using it because right now you don't really have to think about when you like
Sure.
as soon as you see a good shop, instantly use it. Right, there's no like real drawback. But if you make it like more expensive every time, then you actually have to think about it. Don't want to wait until I see a really good shop and then jump on it. Because right now I just think it's too free in terms of how you use this hero. But I don't hate the initial 3-on-3 take 4. Like, but that itself could be the hero power, and like I'd be like, that's pretty good. Like legitimately, if that was like just the hero power,
Yeah.
obviously it
That's
wouldn't
like,
be like
oh,
broken.
I'm AFK and better. I get
Yeah,
more things.
yeah, all right, yeah,
Not always,
arguably,
but
yeah.
sometimes, right? Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. The I think that it's okay to start with let's not let it be one cheaper from the get go, but I think your suggestion it could be good. Like if it proves to be too strong after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the hero's like super busted, but the way it plays is omega toxic. Like you just deal 15 to turn 5, like very often. It's too that's too toxic, I think, for me to just like let this stay the way it is. So I would nerf it in some way just off of that right itself. So, but yeah, I mean, right now the hero's super good. If you have perks, say, play this hero. I got it 3 games in a row. Like it was, and Greasebot was in. I went to 6 every time, play Greasebot. Like it was every game. I didn't win all of them, but it wasn't hard. Like to go straight to 6. Like it didn't really feel hard at all to just like ramp. Whereas a lot of other heroes, it's a lot harder to just ramp. But you get so much gold and economy and stuff like that you just kind of absent-mindedly level and then take the host shop and then you steal 6 drops and things. And once you get to 6 gold, right, you get the extra slot. Another thing, I think it was it Soren or Mr. Incredible? I think it was Mr. Incredible. He was like, take new recruit, and I didn't realize. I was like, oh, you're so right. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
New recruit with this hero is so stupid. If you're in a prize lobby, but yeah.
Yep, good hero, strong hero.
Yeah, very, 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 very strong hero. I agree. Moving on. Hero updates. Lich King, Sneed, and Edwin Van Cleave can now all target minions in Bob's Tavern, as well as friendly minions. Effects that are not for 1 turn will carry over to the next recruit phase if you freeze them near the tower. What do you think about these hero updates? Lich King, Sneed's, Edwin, they're getting a massive buff. Shady, what's your thoughts?
Completely irrelevant. This is to be consistent, right, with other heroes, I suppose. This is I feel like this is purely just being like, yeah, let's just make it like that because we've programmed it for the other things now.
Yeah.
But this has no gameplay change, at least unless I'm wrong, and I don't imagine there might be some really, really fringe case scenario where it's good, where like you're gonna buy something on Sneak next turn, but you only have 1 more gold and you're freezing and you can hero power the shop. Sure, right? But like on an Edwin, on a Lich King, no, never, right? Like you're not hero powering the shop as Lich King. That's not happening. So you're talking maybe on an Edwin or on a Sneed where you're on 1 gold left, you want to freeze, and you're like, I really don't want to buff anything on my board, which is rare that you're gonna like voluntarily take the minus tempo. Yeah. So under most, almost all circumstances, you're not gonna do this.
Let's say you're playing Edwin, you're rolling it down, you have 1 gold left, I know, bam, there's a Hydra in the shop. You're like, wow, I don't want to buff my Deflecto bot. That's not as good as a Hydra. Let me spend my 1 gold. Hey, 4 attack on the Hydra because I bought 4 units while I was rolling it down. Yep, copium. And then, damn, I'll freeze that shop. Ooh, I have an 8 attack or 10 attack Hydra in the shop. That's so good for next turn. You just take the 15 now, and then bam, the turn afterwards, you get this 10 attack Hydra. They can continue buffing. It's crazy. I do agree, like, realistically, they found the coding to do this, and they're just like, why not? Like,
why not?
We get to write a paragraph in the patch notes. Why not?
I don't want to give him shit for this either, because the situation that you described with Edwin, it could happen, and with Sneak,
sure.
Give players the option to do it, right? It is just a little funny, right? Where like in, let's say 99% of the cases, and 99 might be a little generous. It might be 99 point something, right? But especially, if we're talking high level gameplay. If we're talking, like whatever you want to do, like, hey man, if you want to buff the shop instead of buffing your board, go for it. Take that 10 damage and have a big unit next turn.
Yeah, Lich King, it doesn't matter at all because you lose the reborn after it turns, so that you wouldn't hero power something in the shop. Sneeds maybe, but like also that one doesn't really make too much sense, right? I mean, you'd usually just target something on your board most of the time. Yeah, it's there. Anyways, they're not that important. We're just kind of making fun of it, but it's not like bad to see, but it's just like kind of irrelevant. Next thing we do have the minion update. So Whelp is getting the extra attack, so it's going from 1-2 to 2-2. I've pretty much always thought Whelp was the worst minion in the game.
Yep.
for the longest time, so pretty much since it's been out. So um, this does
But
help it. It legitimately does make it better.
it's funny when I see a red whelp, the previous version, right? If I saw a 1 and 2 red whelp on my opponent's board, my initial thought was, oh, they must have opened 3 red whelps.
Yeah, or yes, or two at least. At least
That's the
two.
thought process,
Yeah.
right? No, like just 2 as in 3 as in you did not have a choice. There was literally nothing else you could buy.
Oh, you mean
Like,
like turn one? Oh, I see.
yeah, because the amount of times where I would even want to freeze a whelp pair, right? We're talking some very, very, very specific situations here. So for me, it was like, oh, they opened 3 whelps, which probably wasn't always the case, but the fact that you could somewhat seriously make that suggestion goes to show how bad the minion was.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is nice. This just I don't think whelp is now oppressive, right? It's not a card where you're like, oh my god, they started with whelp, but it's like, yeah, cool. Like you no longer get absolutely shat on by most of the one drops.
So one thing I kind of was thinking initially was to make it deal 1 damage per friendly dragon +1. So, because the weirdest thing for me is when you're playing Yasiraj or Hero Power, you hit this thing, you get the burn animation and it burns for 0. And that always
Yeah.
annoyed me. Like, you see the burn animation, and it just burns for 0 because there's no dragons at the start of the combat. But if you had that +1, you don't have that problem. And then also, like, it is a buff, right? Like, dealing 2 initially, it means you can beat out, like, micro mummies or something, right? So it had that, go tied to the Murlocs and things like that. So it would also solve this issue too. But this is okay as well. Like, it's not as cool as I wanted, because like being able to burn for 2 is actually like quite strong. Like, it would actually be, but it's definitely more toxic. The suggestion I was looking at is a more toxic suggestion, where this one is not as toxic. So maybe that's just better. Cause I mean, imagine you have 2 of these and then you burn 3 damage, right? So like they have 3 threes, you just burn them and then you win the fight. Like, that's pretty toxic. Whereas if you burn for 2 and they have 3 threes, you don't kill both, right? You just maybe kill 1 or 0 and you tie. So
Especially with the next change coming up, right? That would have been a bit much.
yeah,
Right now you're incentivized to buy these. So I feel it's in a good spot right now. Well,
yeah. I think Whelp is definitely playable now. So good on them, right? At least it's more playable. Chroma Wing has also been reworked, returned to a minion pool. So now it's a Tavern Tier 1 dragon, which is same as before. It's a 1/1, which I thought was really weird. But after you upgrade a Tavern, gain +1/+1 for each friendly dragon. So initially, I wasn't super happy about this. I was thinking maybe you want this to be a 1/2. That's what I was thinking. So even if you bought 1, it's a 1/2. You level. On 2, it's a 2/3, right? So that is more like acceptable. Like if you just have 1. So if you have a 2/3, you can tie with like the 2/3 Murloc, and you can tie with things, right? Because like let's say you buy this on 1 and then you level, you have a 2/2. Like, that's so trash. Like, it's so awful. So you can't really buy this and level. Like you're really not doing yourself a favor. Where if it was a 1/2, you could buy this on level, and maybe still wrong, but like not as crazy.
But just to clarify, that's not what you're advocating for right now.
No. That's not what you should do if you're buying this hero. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean you're not advocating for a Chroma Wing buff. I just want to.
I mean, if you made this a 1/2, I actually wouldn't care. I do think that the minion is problematic in its own way. Like, who's designing some of I know I say this like a lot of the time when it comes to design, but who's the like the folks that are designing these? Like,
I just want to say, like, I'm not with the I'd be okay if this was a 1/2, by the way. It definitely. So I had a very, like, the first time I looked at this, I was also just like, it's a 1/1. It's gonna make me buy more dragons. That's a bit weird. I probably don't like this minion, but then you play with it. If I just
I played. Yeah,
picturing, yeah, but and you know, right? But just for the listeners, like just picture this. You have and what I'm about to describe is like the best version, but the budget versions are still very, very fine, right? So you roll 2 whelps and 2 chroma wings on someone like Ysera.
that is near the best version. Don't.
Yeah, but that is, if you are Ysera, it's not.
Okay,
Because you're gonna have multiple.
Ysera doesn't count. Let's say you're playing something else. You know.
Well, okay, so 2 chroma wings and a red whelp is extremely realistic.
Okay, sure. That one is
because
fair.
you're usually not, and that is what I've had on average.
Okay.
So then we're talking 3 dragons.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to warrior curve most of the time.
Yeah.
So that means on the 7 gold turn, your 2 1/1s, you're going to level. They're each going to gain 3/3, so they're going to turn into 4/4s,
4/4,
and then another 3/3 from leveling again. 2 7/7s.
Yeah.
That's a 1-drop. We're talking Wrathweaver with more than 2 demons.
It's better than old Chroma Wink. Think about that.
Much better. Much better.
Yeah. So
less exploitable in the million damage.
Yeah.
You can, but when it comes to pure tempo, because essentially what happens is
the old whelp was more complicated to play. Rewarded high skilled players. This one doesn't.
Well, let's be honest.
I would be honest.
There was not a lot of high skill involved.
There was a bit of it. Like not with Cookie. Like ignore the Cookie. But like there were some old Chroma Wing comps where I went like double regular Chroma Wing Nadina and like Leroy Manted. That was my comp.
I don't think that old Chroma Wing pre-Cookie was problematic.
No, I don't think so either. But I'm saying
it was a card. Yeah, go ahead.
But it was a card that allowed for like interesting compositions that this card doesn't really allow for. Or in this variant, like you can't run Nadina Chroma Wing. Like you have to be running like a full dragon composition, so it doesn't.
You can, and I have.
Well, okay, but
I won a lot of that. But
you kind of high roll because it means you ran a ton of dragons where before you didn't need those like extra dragons to buy.
Yeah, sure. It was very non-committed before.
Yeah.
Right. Like you slap 2 gems, right, and they just like take off, go to the moon.
Yeah. You get a random triple. It's Nadina, and you just run this like as a 3.
And you have that glaring weakness, which was it's going to have like 4 health.
4 health. Yeah.
So it is going to get 1 shot. It will maybe even die to a blaster if you haven't buffed it by any means. Whereas the new version, I've very, very consistently just leveled to 5, grab a triple, get a 6-drop, and then maybe level the turn after. Just because so I had a Reno game this morning where I just played 2 Chroma.
I thought you were going to tell me you hero powered the Chroma Wing.
No. Well,
I was waiting for that. I had a Reno game.
No. So hero powering the Chroma Wing defeats the whole purpose of the Chroma Wing. The Chroma Wing is already winning you the fights. Making you win the fights harder, But once again, just for the viewers, because someone might say, "Hey, what if we Reno hero power it?" Then you're gonna win the fights harder. You don't need to win the fights harder early on. So,
but if your opponent also has a Reno Shady, like you.
Chroma, then you take 2, whatever. Who gives a shit? So no, but really, losing to a Chroma Wing board doesn't matter. You don't take damage. So the I just had a triple whelp or triple Chroma in the shop. I went to 5, took the triple, got a Dark Gaze Elder, hero powered it, went to 6. I think I spent 1 turn on 5 getting some Quillboard and went to 6. My Chroma Wing was huge. It was very, very free. I think I had 35 HP when I pulled my 6-drop as Reno. 35.
Seems good.
As a Reno, right? I have no hero power. It's pure Chroma Wing carrying me.
It kind of reminds me of Tavern Tipper, but without the drawback, right?
It's Tavern Tipper, but way better if you have dragons on your board, because you're more free with your curve, and this one gains damage as well, right? So Tavern Tipper gains +1/+2 per turn.
Right.
Assuming you're leveling every turn and you have, I think we established that 3 dragons is reasonable.
Yeah. Get them +3/+3.
you're
Un-
getting pretty much double, right?
yeah.
You're getting 1 extra health, but you're getting 2 extra damage. So in terms of total stats, you're getting double the stats of a tavern tipper every turn, and that is with 3. You can also have 4, and then we're gaining +4/+4,
Yeah,
right?
and you're not losing that extra gold is very key.
Yeah, well, I will say with a proper reform curve for the tipper, the third tipper is in the shop. I don't really care. I'm reform curving anyway.
Yeah,
Like
sure,
that one wasted gold is basically like 1 extra unit on tier 1 you didn't buy. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, the main appeal I would say is you're just stronger. You have more stats. Because I had one curve where I actually had a tipper and chromo wings. I was like, oh, I'm really not losing now. So yeah, it's and then on Ysera there is currently a little bit of experimentation to be done. The Ysera game I won, I stayed on tier 1 until 8 gold, and I had like golden chromo wing and 2 extra chromo wings, and I was gaining +20/+20 every time I tiered.
Oh.
And I was talking to chat, and I said, chat, you know that taking the triple is actually the greedy play. The responsible play here is to tier to 6 and get my stats. It's so dumb.
Did
Right? It
you
was like,
did you level?
so because of how it worked out, it was pretty good for, because I'm Ysera, I've been getting dragons in the shop all the time, right?
Right.
So for me, it made sense to on tier 5 to take my triple and then buy 2 more dragons.
Okay.
that I was a little bit better. But if your shop isn't great, then I feel like going to 6 when you're getting +20/+20 is totally fine. So yeah, that game was pretty silly. And I mean, I tripled into Cali. It didn't even matter that much. I ended up playing that game with. That's actually the game I talked to you about. That was where I had 2 big Chroma Wings and just a bunch of Nadina triggers.
Well,
But yeah, you
okay. That's not fair. Wow, like that you're literally playing a Sarah. Like I'm talking about old Chroma Wing. You could be playing any hero. You just get 2 random Chroma Wings with like some stat buff, and then bam, you just like. It requires more skill. Is what I'm saying. Like that one was more skill expression, where this one is like not.
I never disagreed with that. I said that you can play Nadina with this current.
Yeah, but you have like a 30/30 crowing with Nadine. It's not the same as having like an 103 or 104.
Well,
like.
both Chroma Wings ended up having 60 damage, so they were relevant. But yes, it's easier to get to the relevant damage point when you're playing the old Chroma Wing. I think that goes without saying.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's very weird. They're like some of the design stuff here, right? Because they spent some time reworking this card, right? And this is what they came up with, but it's not like this is not a healthy card, I would say. In my opinion, I don't think this card is healthy. So, like, is it back to the drawing board? Like, rework this again? I have the wrong emotes. Tell me what emotes I need to.
I wanted to make white people happy, and now I called Soren white people fat. I don't know why you have a white people fat in your arsenal.
Some people like it. You know.
I got debated. Anyways. He gets the apology live on air. But the I agree in that this probably ain't it if we're talking. It's so painful, right? Because I can see by the fact that they made it a 1/1, they're like surely it's fine, right? As a 1/1, these degens aren't going to hard force Chroma Wings. They're like, roll for Chroma Wing. So yeah, I today alone, I saw like tier 1, I saw like 3 people hoarding dragons. I'm like, this is gonna be a thing, huh? So I don't know if and when they're going to
another month. Just look at Greasebot. Don't worry, Shady. Another month.
Yeah, we may have to call the hotline and say this might not be exactly balanced, right? So we'll see, right? We'll see how the meta evolves.
What do you mean bullshit? We always say this. And we're always right. Like, yeah. You know, like, so, we don't have to see. We have enough experience. Okay. Have some faith in yourself, Shady. This is not okay.
Well, I'll rephrase. Unless we are massively wrong about this will most likely have to be addressed, right? So, but, you know, I don't want to be I don't want to have that hubris to say like, well, of course it's day one and I know that it's OP, right? So it's not day one, right? But I
It's
feel
day
like
two, Shady. I think that's enough data. We've seen
at
enough.
2 days.
Yeah.
So it does feel right now that it's a bit scary in that you don't want to have a meta where people are pushing so hard for a particular one drop because it creates a big advantage from the very, very beginning of the game. You don't want that in the game, right? You already have the hero rolls. You already have the fact, do you get a triple or not? You already have the fact, do you open with economy or not? You don't want to also say, well, I did not get 2 Chroma Wings and my opponent did, so my opponent gets the level to 6 for free and I get fucked, right? You don't want to introduce that in the game because then you feel like, I'm supposed to roll for the Chroma Wing, but I didn't hit it. And now I'm in the spot where I'm kind of screwed. They're already all out of the pool. And yeah, so
The
it's not a good.
solution is simple. Bring back old Chroma Ring delete Cookie. Like, Cookie is still the problem. Like, Cookie is still an issue. You know,
Cookie
like,
is absolutely an issue.
yeah, so I like Chroma Wing is just getting burned, and now he's getting this new one where everyone's like, Chroma Wing is such a problem. Oh my god, you know. And then Chroma Wing's like, why did you adjust me in the first place?
I
Right?
was good. I was
fine.
Yeah. Damn Cookie. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think it indeed feels like they want Cookie to be a thing.
Yeah.
But in high level gameplay, like this morning, right? Literally 2 games in a row, I created an over 200 health Divine Shield minion from scratch.
It's a lot easier now that Greasebot isn't in too, because you
Yeah,
have the time.
you don't get punished as hard, right? You
Yeah.
can, like, I actually had like the Golden Elder plus regular Elder on my board. I was just farming.
Yeah.
So and it was so insane because like, well, move all the gems to one thing, cookie that, and then move all the gems to the shields. It's just, yeah. So once again, just a reminder or clarification for, let's say you haven't been playing and you don't know the interaction. If you have a unit with a lot of gems on it, you play Cookie Chemist, you can then use a Necrolite to move those gems to another target. And because you played Cookie Chemist on the target with a lot of gems, it will not lose the stats from the gems.
You say this
every
every podcast.
every stream. It's because the question has not died down. Every time I do that play on stream, there's always someone asking, is that a bug? That a bug? Like, it seems like it shouldn't work that way. And yes, it feels like a bug, but it's not something that is treated as a bug. It feels like it's something that is intentional, right, from the developer's point of view.
Imagine being like a new player and like trying to understand the game, and like you see some random streamer do that, and you're like, what is even going on? Like, how did he get like 60 out of nowhere? Like, is he cheating?
Yeah, I don't want to play this game where people make 200 health and on the scratch.
It's so weird. I agree. It's so weird, and that's not the only like weird thing you can do with Cookie, right? Like, it still makes some heroes weird. It interacts with like some other cards like Nomi and stuff like that. It interacts very weird too. So it's like Cookie has a number of problems that they're like hiding their head in the sand about. Like, I don't want to see this, so like, it's fine. Cookie's a cool card, it's a card from Constructed. It doesn't need stats. A 4/4 on Tavern Tier 2 is okay. Like with that battle cry, like, what? Okay, like, it's so weird.
Whenever we talk about this, I keep bringing like just that mental image of Gordon Ramsay being like going to the Cookie Chemist to be, oh dear, it's so wonderful, don't worry about it. And like, Chroma Wing, you stupid shit, like, you call me oh god. Yeah, so it does feel like the easy solution, if it's an option. I don't know if there's any constraint where like, no, we have to keep Cookie in the game, we're gonna release a bunch of other cards and it's gonna be really cool with Cookie, like, trust us guys, Cookie needs to be in the game. Unless that's the case, then yeah, just remove Cookie, please, because it's I think it's preventing you from having that regular Chroma Wing in the game, and it's still really silly with gems. And of course, you mentioned the Nomi interaction, which is a very fringe one, so you don't see it. And
yeah, because people don't play Nomis. That's the thing.
But also, if you're Nomi and you already have some stat buffs, you're usually fine, right? This is like a very very specific. You've buffed like maybe +8, and yeah, but you can
but
you can
like
have a big
adding
element.
50/50 on a cleave is crazy. Then again, we know
Yeah,
gem splitter cookie, so like it's actually not that crazy because
yeah.
that's funny. Though like normally you're like, oh, I can make my wildfire like 100 instead of 50-50. Like that's insane, and now you're like, oh, I mean, the other guy's
Yeah,
playing Quo boards and he just made
basically
200. So like,
it's like 10 smoggers that you've played.
yeah.
I just played
I mean,
10
for
smoggers.
one cookie, that's like really good though.
Yeah, well, there are some constraints, right? The unit
Yeah,
needs to be in the
you have to
top.
not
You need
play
to
it and
freeze the
yeah.
unit, right? So yeah, just once again say how this works. At least I've never done it, right? But
Imagine you're
according
playing
to
Janice though, right? You just keep the cookie and then just like flip
yeah,
every time.
you want to explain the interaction calls so the listeners
So
who haven't done
if you know me buffs or know me light spawn buffs, right? They'll buff the unit in the shop. If you cookie something in the shop with the know me light spawn buffs, it'll reset that buff. So it's like they have 0 know me light spawn buffs. So if you freeze it and then the next shop rolls around, it'll add those buffs like it has no buffs. So let's say like you've got like you're getting 30/30s. If you cookie something in the shop, an element in the shop, and freeze it, when you reset, it'll gain the 30/30 again. So it'll go to 60. So you can just add the extra buffs on top if you have a cookie on it. You do have to freeze a minion and let it roll around, but that's like not the largest drawback. Like if you're spending 4 gold to get plus 30/30, it's pretty worth. Especially if it's on a premium unit. So if it's like Divine Shield cleaves, that kind of thing, maybe another light spawn. Who knows if you're that greedy? But yeah, kind of fringe because Greasebot was overpowering every other composition. So you try playing numbers, you get murdered basically most of the time. But now with Greasebot change, you might have more time. You might see more of it because I've seen more Nomi since Greasebot left, so might be more playable.
just stats in general, right? It's
Yeah.
you don't get as punished by divine shields.
Speaking of Greasebot change, we should probably talk about it because this was the only change in the patch. So basically, just one new minion and then 2 new heroes. 2 minion changes. 1 new hero, two new. Well, not 2 new, but like 1 minion update and 1 hero minion addition. Like, I will say, like, adding this Chroma Wing was like super necessary because Caligos was unplayable. Now with this, I played Cali even without the Greasebot removal. Like I was able because I had the Chroma Wing stuff, and I had a minion that I wouldn't die. It's, like I could play a Cali and not die that one turn, So even that second extra dragon on tier 1, it just allows more options. So like removing Chroma Wing out of the game is like that would like you need that extra unit that you can synergize with the Kali to play it efficiently. So it's not an easy solution. It's just like, oh, let's just remove remove Chroma Wing because you remove a whole archetype by doing that. Like because basically since Chroma Wing has been gone, like Kali disappeared completely. I would say Kali got weaker just because of all like we talked about last podcast. Like you've lost the seafood and the Amagidon and stuff like that. But I've seen more Kalis with this Chroma Wing edition, even before the Greasebot change. Now with the Greasebot change, it's like it's a lot easier to just like commit to this because like you just see, people are more aware of how good the Chroma Wing actually is. But even the card, like even before Greasebot was removed, I saw more Caligos, and I think that's interesting. Like you remove this tier 1 card, and now like you can't play the 6-drop version, and you add it back, and now you can play it again. Very interesting to me. So, but let's move on to the next thing. We should talk about kind of supplementing this particular change. Greaser is gone, so they said Greasebot. The words they said is Greasebot being temporarily removed from the Battleground minion pool, but it's still a like even if you say temporarily, like we still have to play the game while it's temporarily removed, and it's a fundamentally different game with it gone. So very big deal. This was pretty much the strongest card in the game, pretty much the meta-defining card in the game for the last month, maybe month and a week. Just kind of a lot of the mech lobbies were get to 5, get to 6, discover a grease or roll into grease, and then like once you have the grease, then clean out the comp, make sure it's clean, use macros, use deflectos, resets, and make sure that you're getting as many like high premium divine shield units as you can. So definitely a big deal, a big neuter to all divine shield comps basically, because you could run this with any divine shield comp. I saw grease spots in like random comps that like it didn't really make sense for them to have a grease, but like like I couldn't judge them for it. Like, oh, the grease spot makes no sense here, but I still respect the buy. Like, remove it from the pool,
And then it's an okay unit on
by
its
itself.
own.
Yeah,
It just needs something, right? Yeah.
so
That's the crazy part.
definitely a big deal. What's your thoughts on this removal?
I like it because it's you God, and like I gotta be careful that I'm not too hyperbolic here, right? My instinct was to say that it kind of feels like a whole expansion has dropped with how gameplay has shifted. Maybe it's not entirely accurate, right? Maybe it's also just a day one feeling. But it is as you mentioned, a fundamentally different game when there is less emphasis on 6 drops to begin with. That already changes the game a little bit. That doesn't mean that you don't want 6s anymore, right? We still have the Dark Gaze Elder. We talked about how Kelly is now more interesting. But before, there was an incredible incentive.
I never said Kelly was more interesting. Don't put those words in my mouth.
I believe those were the exact words. I force Kelly every game now. Chroma Wings on my board. Something, Nadina. I miss old Chroma Wing. I think that was it, word by word. But yeah, whatever. Collins does not like Kelly.
I don't hate Kelly, but I just don't think it's worth forcing or anything like that.
Yeah, no, you don't want to force it. I got a nice game where I just went to 6 and opened 2 Kellys, and I was like, oh, I can do this now. Right. Whereas before you might open 2 Kellys, we talked about it and be like, you can still
I skipped it. I've been in that position like very early, turn 6, roll 2 Kelly, skip that sucker because it's not a grease spot. Yeah. And I won the game, so like it was correct.
Not turn 6, but early tier 6.
Like right? Early tier 6, yeah, early tier 6. Yeah.
I just want to, someone.
They're like, how did you get into double Kelly on turn 6?
Collins is selling his whole board repeatedly to just level.
I'm playing old Shutterwalk. Yeah.
Yeah, he's cheating. Yeah. 2 Kellys on Shutterwalk. So yeah. Anyways, my take on it right now is that I like it because it changes the game quite a bit, and I like what I'm playing. I'm afraid that the Chroma Wing is going to be too common, and that I'm then not going to like it anymore because it will be too much like, my opponent got the Chroma start and is going to level. I don't have it, and I'm going to suffer. Right now, I'm okay with it. I will say that a nerf could have happened instead of the removal.
Yes.
So
I will play devil's advocate. Not because I want to play devil's advocate, but this is how I believe. I don't understand why they're removing the card. Like, I think it's a weird adjustment. Like, why remove the card? Because the card was overtuned, but then you can undertune. You can nerf it. Like, you don't have to delete the card. And the card was like a real linchpin of a lot of compositions, especially for mechs. Like, before Greasebot got that buff when it was on tier 4. Like, mechs were pretty much never played except for the Buster comp. And then you add this thing, and, like, mechs became viable as, like, a winning composition. So that was the right direction, because before, like, mechs were not really viable as a winning composition. Except for that one niche, like, beast mechs are in. You play Buster, you have Macaw variant, like, with Baron. Like, everything is perfect. And then, yeah, you can win with if you have that creme de la creme comp. But now, but with this, now you could win with other things. I will say, like, the Mecro is a problem. Like, I don't like, if Grease was fine and, like, they're delete Mecro, I would be singing a very different tune, because I would be like, they understand more about what the actual problem of this composition is. I would say, like, you could nerf Greasebot, delete Mecro. I'm like, wow, they really understand this game. They must have some real high level players, really playing the high MMR. But here, like it just feels like Mecro, they're not touching. They haven't touched. They did that one nerf -2 attack. Who really cares? Didn't really change anything. But then the grease ball like kind of opened up a lot of like end game mech composition. So you could have made it like a 2-1. I think 2-1's like super safe, like where like you're not really gonna have a lot of complaints from like a 2-1 stat line, and then you remove macro because the macro resets is really what allows things to be busted. Like you could see those lobbies or those fights where someone has like Baron Tunnel Blaster, and then the dude has two macros, they're both taunted, and it just resets itself, and they're getting 3 attack 2 health for free at like the end of the Tunnel Blaster. Like I've seen that happen. Like the dude had like Baron double Tunnel Blaster, and they blow the board, and then like the end of that whole setup, your macros are bigger with full divine shield. Like like you haven't solved anything at all. And it's just like, how is that an okay mechanic to have? And the way macro works is like so unintuitive and so counterproductive to how you want to deal with the mech archetype as a composition. Because you play mechs and you're like, okay, how do I deal with this? You want to deal with the shield. How do I deal with the shields? Oh, deal with it. Use cleave, use AoE to remove it, but cleave AoE both don't work against macro. And it's just like, well, why do you have this like super premium like god answer to the fundamental counter to mech composition built into like good mech compositions? It just doesn't make sense. It's not a niche thing to play macros. Like it's the premium thing. And like the answer, which was like Leroy's, right? Like because of Greaseball, like it doesn't matter because all your minions are big. And if you run Leroy, you can't run Tunnel Blaster. So unless you like, do a lot of extra work that's hard to do on the fly. If you're fighting multiple opponents, if you're like on a 1v1, yeah, you can do the extra work. But if you're not, then it's hard to like, okay, I need to buff my, I need to Uther my Leroy, play my Tunnel Blaster, get the Barons, It's so much extra things to do like in 1-2 turns. So it's just weird that their answer to this is like, oh, let's just delete Greaseball and then Mecro's still fine. Like Mecro's gonna feel a lot better now because you don't have the scaling built in. But it's like Greasebot's not the problem. It's the macro. It's it's the way that it easily counteracts the answers to normal mech composition that really makes this change to me feel kind of I don't love it, I would say. So that's my devil's advocate response to this. Maybe I went a little too in, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Just let you rant on Mecro. I know that's the time.
Every time I can toss Mecro into a conversation and how it doesn't deserve to be in the game, I will, because I think I have some good answers to it. I've been thinking about this for a while. So yeah.
So to clarify,
yeah.
I believe, and don't quote me on this yet, but I believe that the grease spot was removed because this was not a planned change. So they cannot adjust the stat line like that. They need to remove the card, sort of take it in the shop, then adjust the stat line. And then
what do you mean it's not a planned change?
I believe that this was mainly just a reaction to, we pushed this patch out.
We didn't know we wanted to nerf Greaseball. Oh, that's even worse.
I'm not sure. Once again, right? I want to make sure that it. All I know is that
Greaseball is fine, copium, and then you do the patch. Everyone's complaining.
Maybe they were planning it for like a bigger patch, or God knows, man. I don't know. What do I know, right? So I don't have a pure, straight insight in the developer philosophy. But I know that when it's a patch like this, at least unless I'm mistaken, it's maybe not even possible for them to adjust it like that, and it's easier to remove.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So
that's why. And
they weren't planning on nerfing Greasebot. So this is like a reaction to, like the community reaction to this patch, basically, is what I'm hearing.
Not sure. It's a possibility at the very least.
I don't
want to say that they were not planning on nerfing Greasebot at all. It feels like,
well,
That would be bad
I,
if
I,
that was the case.
I don't think they weren't, because they did do this very quickly after the patch, right? So maybe they were thinking, Greasebot maybe is a problem, but maybe it's okay enough that we'll let it slide this patch. And then like after the community response was like, where's Greasebot nerf? Then they're like, okay, let's just remove it, and then we'll deal with it later or something like that. So it is weird because it's been a month though, right? Like that's the one caveat.
I feel like that's the page I'm on as well, where it was kind of a thing like where we're gonna address it, but then not this patch, and they're like, oh shit, let's just remove it for now and just bring it back later. I think it's more something along those lines.
Yeah, but still, like the weird thing is like they do have the data. Like it's been a month, right? The card is very, very strong, so not planning on adjusting. And to be fair, like you don't have to. I guess maybe the light spawn, but the light spawn adjustment was very weird. Like to making it like a 4/5 into a 2/2, a 2/5. Like you could make it a 2/2 instead of a 3/2. And like I would complain. I will be fair. Like, but it's like if you did it a week after it came out, I wouldn't complain. You know what I mean? Because like, okay, quick change.
But you said a lot of things just to make sure I'm on the right track and everyone else as well.
Sure.
You're talking about Greasebot if they had nerfed the scaling from +3/2 to +2/2.
Yeah.
It would have been fine if it had happened very quickly, but even now you would not have settled for that.
Yeah, because it's been long enough that they should have like tested it and be like, okay, the number that works in multiple lobbies is this, 2-1, 1-2, whatever. But I do think 2-2 is kind of the same, right? Like like Greasebot would still be played at basically the same consistency as it's playing now, and if you nerf the attack scaling by 1, you have to do more than that, I think. But if you did that early enough, like a weekend, that would be fine for me because it's early enough that you can kind of mess around with the numbers, and I would be okay with it because it just shows, okay, we added this card, it's too strong, we're quickly going to nerf it, but not nerf it too much that's unplayable, but you are gonna feel it a little bit, so I would have been fine with that. But now a week later, it's not enough, right? So it'd have to be bigger. So but I do think like the also removing it is also too much, where it's gonna be hard to win with mechs again unless you're running that exact Macaw Buster Baron setup. You're not going to be seeing those really fancy double deflecto macro boards anymore because you just don't have the scaling for it. Maybe you can do it with Quillbors, but even the Quillbor setup has a cap, right? And a cap that doesn't beat other late game compositions, so it's still not good enough. So I do think like if they weren't planning on nerfing it, removing it is probably better than doing nothing. But if they had a different plan, I do think the removal is like just a bit extreme, right? I would have liked to see multiple nerfs, and I do think they don't do that enough, like small nerfs or small buffs on minions and heroes, like because the whelp change from this patch, right, could have been done very much earlier, right? We've had that small whelp for a long time, and it's been the worst, in my opinion, the worst meme in the game for quite a while, right? Over more than half a year. So we could have seen like multiple iterations of that card, right? We could have seen it, a little bit higher stat and see how it feels instead of just having a really bad card in the game for a long time. So there are a lot of cards that are kind of like that where it could use a bit of buff. Like you've seen how powerful they have been. I remember the 4/4 dragon, the 4/4 demon that became a 6/6 demon, right? It wasn't played as a 4/4. It became a lot more playable as a 6/6. And small little changes like that, if you do that with a lot of cards over time, you get a much healthier metagame where you can go a lot of different compositions because they're all viable in their own way, where Right now, like what happens is there's one composition that's significantly better than everything else, and then you just have to find a way to play that if you can, and if you don't, then you do like the B variants instead of having a ton of like A tier compositions, which is what you necessarily want to have. So it's
You said a
obviously a
lot
lot
of
more work, but
you said a lot of stuff there, right? And I definitely have some thoughts on some of it. I would say that the one of the points that comes to mind is that I don't know if every minion type needs to have a
true.
strong endgame
I agree.
because mechs feel that, and yeah, you agree probably to a large part here that the it's a tough thing to tackle because you want different types to be strong at different types in the game in different times in the game to kind of give them their identity and mechs really are those mid-game bullies. You have two deflectos and a taunted reset, you are really really likely to beat anyone that's on their way to building a comp, right? Anyone that is still trying to get up their Quillbore army with a dark gaze, anyone that is buffing their dragons with a Caligos is going to get completely shot on by like two 12 damage deflectos and a taunted harvest golem and some stuff, right? And
Yeah,
it's going
yeah.
to go to town. The issue is if you then take a type like that, a minion type like that, and you add consistent good late game scaling, the problem there is like, where is their weakness? What is their weak turn? Because hey, if you roll two deflectos and a reset, you're winning your fights. And hey, if you add a grease bud now, all of a sudden, you're kind of just scaling and it's no problem, and you just keep winning. So that I guess my main thing there is, sure, it's at first glance, you can look at it and say, oh, these minion types are bad because they don't win games or whatever, but you would have to nerf them in the mid game, I would feel. And that changes the whole dynamic of the game. Right now, mechs are that great, like, oh, I'm going to stabilize with mech, and maybe if I have a really good game, I could still win, right? Like, let's say I'm playing Deflecto and I triple into Busters and blah, 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 blah. The moment we add a very reliable late game scaling minion, it's maybe too free, right, to just start with mech. That was something else. Unless you want to reply to this, right?
Um, I do generally agree. I don't think all minion types need to have late game, but I was more talked about uh, the types that we have, the compositions they have. Not all the minions are playable, and
Oh,
slowly
right, yeah.
buffing the least played of the weaker minion types, over time. Like you don't have to take half a year to buff Red Whelp, is what I'm trying to say, right? That
Yeah.
could have happened much earlier, and then I would say like it would have felt better. I don't think we'd be complaining about Whelp if it got this
No.
buff months
That
ago.
that I agree with to a certain degree, where if you are doing those changes very frequently, it's sort of this like, okay, now we've buffed this and now this is a bit stronger and now I need to buff this. And you just like force power creep where we just keep buff, 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 buff,
Well,
buff,
you can
buff
also
because
nerf things. That's
sure,
where the
sure.
counter, like I do think it's harder to do that, right? Like it's more work for the Battlegrounds design team, but it is rewarding to have a game that your players feel you have a lot of options when you're deciding what to do.
A lot of so you essentially just want the cards closer together where you have things like we talked about, I think, a big Infernal that was a 4/4 and turned
Yeah,
into
yeah,
a
yeah.
6/6. That was a good move. I agree with that.
I don't like
uh,
rolling 10 gold and being like there was nothing I could do. Like,
when you roll back.
none of the directions are good enough to make any real transition. Which,
That
which
is
which I do see sometimes when I'm like on
absolutely
on tier 5, I'm rolling it down and like, oh, no me no. Like am
that
I
is,
playing this? No. Am I playing like the 4/6 demon? No. Am I playing like this random Wrangler with no synergy? No, like I can't do. Well, Wrangler is like a good card, so I won't say that. But and Nomi's a good card too, right? And the 4/6 in some situations, but like you need to already have like a ton of extra synergy on top. You can't like transition to those cards because the supplemental cards are weaker. So it's harder to transition. You can't. It's not like you randomly have like elementals, and then you're like, oh well, these elementals allow me to play Nomi, except for light spawn, right? But that's a different conversation entirely. So same thing with like demons. It's like, oh, I mean, I guess you're playing jugglers, and then but you're not playing jugglers, and then you see like 2/4/6. You're like, ah, yes, I can buy the the 4/6 demons because of that. Usually, you go jugglers, and you hit like Felbat, and then like the Felbat allows you to buy the 4/6 or whatever if you want to do that. So, um, it's a little bit different. But I would like, I just like more options, I guess, and having.
I think I think you're correct there, right? Like making minions that are obviously too weak a little stronger. Because I do share that problem where sometimes you do just roll, you've rolled 8 out of your 10 gold, and you're like, I didn't see a single viable card. That's a problem. So yeah, it's pretty. It can be pretty brutal.
Yeah, well, what can you do sometimes? Anyways, Greece is gone, right? We're kind of already like talking about the next topic, which is just like an overview of what you think the meta is with all the changes. But
I think that sort of happens naturally.
yeah, for sure. I wouldn't mind seeing it come back in some form or fashion. Not like Chroma Wing. Don't go Chroma Wing direction.
New and improved.
Yeah, but I don't even think the card itself is bad. Like, and you remember the initial variant where it was like
+2 +1.
Yeah, I think +2 +1. Yeah, and it didn't have shield. And it was on Tavern Tier 4. Even that was playable. But then they nerfed it to +1 +1, and then it was like very unplayable. Except for like George, I guess, basically. But it's interesting. Like, I assume it was too good as a 2+1 in low tier lobbies, right? But in high tier lobbies, it really wasn't a threat. So
yeah, it's one of those unfortunate nerfs where stupid 99% of the player base was having success with the card, and us poor 1%er has to pay the price.
It must be so weird if you're not thinking about balancing that, but you're also having like high level tournaments. You know what I mean? Like where you don't want to balance for that, but then you have these tournaments where like you just see everyone abuse all the things you don't want to bother fix, or you don't want to adjust because of the players that are not playing in the tournament, right? Like, yeah, because it's always fun or interesting when I watch them sometimes, and I'm just like, yeah, these players are really abusing this. Cookie is really doing his job here, but it's hard to find that balance of like high MMR and like regular players as well. But still overall, just thoughts on the changes, kind of end of season meta without grease spots. I haven't really played that much without the grease spot because I'm supposed to be camping theoretically. Like that's what everyone tells me. But
don't play, Collins. Don't play. Please don't.
It's I know, but it's like I don't. I get this urge like I could just win. I won't lose if I win, right? Obviously that I've done this like 4 or 5 months, right? And it's never worked out. That thought for me has never worked out. I've never came out of a month where I actually played and be like, that was good. That was a good decision. I'm always like kicking myself. Why did I play? I was already made it not. I gave myself extra work, ton of extra games for no reason. Just a bunch of stress. So I will try not to play on the main, but I have watched games at least, right? I haven't seen other people play games, and it definitely. It does feel like you can do more things. I do think Quillboars are Quillboars and kind of like Chroma Dragons, if you get it early enough, are kind of doing a lot of work, but it's not even the Chroma. It's not even the Dragons. It's like Chroma lets you get the Quillboar. That's how I look at it.
It's how good players just abuse it, right? If you give a good player this immunity shield, is like, sure, go to 6, right? They'll make it stupid board, right? Be it like Eliza with everything Uthered, perfect Scally comp, double Felbat straight away, double Cali. Heck, even a bunch of little rags, right? If you get escorted to the tier 6 for
I
free,
did see an Omu with like 5 little racks in my game, and I was like, I've never seen that like since
it can
Greaseball was out.
happen.
Yeah.
If you're being sort of dropped off on tier 6, like, here, have a nice game, you'll play it, right? So that's sort of like rag. It's funny, right? It takes me back. Like, rag used to be a pretty premium strategy for how
Yeah.
I played when Gar was in, right? Gar was in, you would do pretty much the same thing the Chroma Wings do now. They just drop you off at 6, but it would be more like, oh, I need to roll the right units. Maybe get like a Mechano tank. I'm not sure if that and Gar existed in the same meta, but that type of unit, right? Like, I have Acolyte and a Mechano tank, and that's going to win me the round, and then I can go to 6, and then I roll, a Rag and a Genie, or like a Brand and Tavern Tempest, and then I get my elementals going. So yeah, once upon a time, Rag was a decent direction, and you'll see a little bit more of it now with people powering to 6 and Greasebot not being a punish.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like 6 is worse, like quote unquote. At least for me, like I have looked at some lobbies and be like, I don't want a 6 here, and that's never fun for me. Like personally, I want to say, oh, I want a 6 in every lobby, but with Mex being having less like premium hits on 6, I mean, it's still just Buster, but Buster's okay, but like Buster without Beast is a different comp. Like you introduce so much more weaknesses to it, so I just don't like it as much. Um, so there are less reasons to just like tier 6, but it is there are more like options you can do just because there isn't that one composition that if you don't get, you get destroyed. And to be fair, the
Yeah.
nice thing about having like strong 1-drops is that people keep the 1-drops later in the game, so you don't take as much damage. Right. The thing with Greasebot is like it's Greasebot Necro Deflecto sometimes, right? And when you lose the fight, you take 15 or more, right? Like I this meta, I've been dealing like 30 plus damage a lot more often than other metas because you have double Grease, you have double Necro, right? They don't die, right? Your Deflecto maybe if you're unlucky dies, right? Like that's 30 damage. Whereas if you have good units on low tiers that you can keep for a long time in the game, then even if you are winning the fights, you are not dealing that 30 damage. You're dealing maybe 15, 10, if you're unlucky, that kind of thing. So I don't mind too much having good low tier minions. Um, just because it gives you options to counterplay as long as that composition that people are running have counterplay options, right? So the Mecro I wouldn't say really had good counterplay with the Grease Spot. Like everything was strong, and even if you Leroyed it, like it messes up your flow, right? Like because if you're running that same exact comp and they have a Leroy and you don't, like, and they don't have the Mecro, you're getting blasted. Because everything's a lot slower for you. Your resets are slower and things like that. So, um, it is a bit weirder. So, but I'm saying a lot of random stuff. I don't really have a point here personally.
I'm just politely waiting for you to get to the point.
Yeah, I don't have a point. I'm
Be
sorry.
be
I'm just
waiting
saying a
for a
lot of
while.
stuff. Generally, what was I saying? Thoughts on the meta. I do think the meta is healthier without the grease spot, but I don't think that's the grease spot's fault per se. I mean, obviously it's a grease spot's fault, but I think you could have kept grease spot and had a significantly healthier meta if you made more other changes, which I talked about earlier in the podcast. So, uh, but overall, I mean, currently, like this is what we have, and the meta is healthier without grease spot because grease spot was too problematic with synergies with the other synergies that Mix had.
I would agree for the most part, where I still reserve the right to look at that. I'm not sure if I want to give Mex a good end game just because of how good their mid game is, but
Sure,
who knows?
sure.
Maybe maybe with a weaker grease spot, it's fine.
Remove macro. Why just? I mean, come on. Like that
Yeah,
was.
yeah, that's. I guess it's just kind of the mech identity is to scam people with good hits, right?
Is it though? It's dude.
Well, according to the developers
Some of
right
the
now.
macro wins are so disgusting to watch. Like the
I
macro
mean,
hits here, and then they go into the other macro, and then you go. And another thing, like when you have golden macro, 2 extra macros, it's not
that doesn't
okay.
happen. That doesn't really
That
happen.
doesn't happen when you. It does happen.
No.
I've done it.
Because then you need to triple your first macro, which is almost
Yeah, I
always.
mean, usually I'm playing like Varden or something,
Yeah,
But there are some heroes like
that's
you
you.
can play
Okay,
Master
so
Win, Hero Power,
you would have
the macro buy.
you would have very likely won that game if had you not combined your first macro pair. Most likely.
I win even harder, Shady. You see,
Yeah,
you're
but that
talking to the
doesn't.
wrong person.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
always like, I want to barely win, and I'm like, I want to
No, no,
destroy my
no, no, no,
opponent.
no, no, no. What I'm saying here is that I think most players that will try to get 3 macros on their board will actually die because they tripled their macro in the first place. And I'm saying that you got to triple your macro because you're good enough to get away with it, but it was probably not the right play.
I am not comparing myself to the people that die when they triple their macro, Shady. I'm comparing
Exactly.
myself to the
But
lobby legends competitors,
then
and
it's
they will
not a
triple
problem.
their macro, Shady. I'm
No, they
telling you,
won't.
they will
They
triple
will
their
not.
macros. I guarantee it.
That's
You,
you wanting to win harder. They will not be tripling their macros, Colin. They're sensible like that. They're like, do I want to really combine my 30-30 macros and then be weaker and then have to rescale like 2 other macros and have to roll 2 more macros? No, they're not going to do that.
I agree
So,
with you. They wouldn't.
you
But
do
they
it
will
because you
think
can
about
get
it.
away.
They will think about it, Shady. Give me that.
They'll-
They will think about it.
They will consider it. And I want it to not even be a consideration. Right?
Uh,
I get it. I want Greasebot dead. I want it erased from the history books. I don't want anyone mentioning that fucker's name anymore.
it's macro that
I will say for you that's the macro, right? I messed it up. But anyways, I for the most part once again agree. I'm not a big fan of macro. I definitely have my fair share of macro losses where I look at the screen and I say, this is BS. Right? I think you want to create outcomes, right? You want to create as many outcomes as possible where the stronger player wins on average, right? And the
what do you
more
think about once you get to a late game, they just run 10 fights and whoever has the highest number wins the fight.
so I agree in that would be more fun for us, but it would be a horrible
I
experience
think
for the
it's so
game.
true. You could do it for April Fools, and I'd be like, okay.
Basically what most pro players would like is they have the fight, they look at the percentages, and whoever has a higher percentage beats the other person.
He's the other person. Let's
The
go.
moment, yeah. The moment of 51%, we're like, I killed him.
I killed him. Yeah.
Get the fuck out. So that's probably almost every like pro player in this game would absolutely love that because there are so many cases, but because when you are playing in a lobby where you are expected to win, you are a lot of the time going to have a higher percentage than your opponent. So you are statistically just the person that gets scammed the most.
Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah. So if you lose, it's usually because they won a 60% or you had a 60, they had a 40 or whatever, or worse. And yeah, I think if you would make the game where the moment you are favored, you beat them, and
Woo,
the
let's
damage is
go. Woo.
and the damage is purely off how favored you are. If it's a 100%, you deal 15 or more, right?
Well, you deal the max of what you could deal.
Well, you deal the max with your stars, right? Yeah, but it's hard to calculate as well because how do you calculate what stays alive if you're purely going off the percentages,
Well,
right? So
that's
that's
why
what I
you
mean.
do 10 and then the average of your wins, Bam.
So you would not go as extreme. You would just
No,
be like,
no, no.
it's less likely.
I'll give you a chance.
I thought it was just funny this whole skip the combat altogether and just look at the percentage and then slap.
No.
You have a lower percentage than me?
Slap him, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
April Fools. I wouldn't actually do it, but for April Fools, I'm down. I'm down. Hit me with it.
So that's a funny world to think about. But I mean, I love the game in its current state, even with all the, I lost that fight, even though I was supposed to win it. That's why I enjoy not having the numbers, right? I rarely have that
Yeah.
feeling of like I was entitled to win this. This was my win. They took it from me, right? So I rarely have that feeling.
I have that feeling all the time, even without the numbers. But it's a lot more validating, because what I do is I feel it and then I check, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, I knew it. I
And
knew
then-
that was
then-
a 12%er I lost. I can't believe it. That every time it's always me. I did win. I did win a 2.5% earlier this week, and I was like, oh. Okay. But you know what annoys me? Actually, okay. You know what annoys me? When I win these like 4%ers, it's like so early in the game it doesn't matter. Like I dealt 2 extra damage to you, or you didn't take 6, and I dealt 6 to you instead of taking 4 or whatever.
I need it now. I need it later.
Yeah. In the late game, man, it's like, did you 12% to lose? I guess you died. Come on, stop it. Give me the. I would much rather have these, good RNGs in the late game, But I did win a 2.5%er this week, and I was like, wow, that rarely ever happens to me. It only happens like 1 out of 40 or so times. Like not that common, so pretty cool. Well, 1 out of 20, but whatever. Anyways, that's all I got. This was a lot longer than I thought it'd be. By the way,
Yep.
there's like 5 topics. We just went into ramble mode, I guess, today.
When the weekly overview is a half-hour warm-up, it's going to be a good one.
That's true. Any final thoughts here before we wrap it up?
I'm a little bit afraid of the potential dragon onslaught.
The dragon meta.
That's the one thing where next podcast we reconvene, and then it'll be, please remove Chroma Wing again, or it'll be like, hey, it wasn't so bad. So
it's not remove Chroma. Like if that does happen, it'll probably be, please revert Chroma Wing, remove Cookie. That's how I would look at it.
But I'll be at that point. I'll be desperate enough to take whatever I can get. So.
Yeah, but if you just remove Chroma Wing, right, you like eliminate dragons again, right? You may as well remove the whole dragon archetype if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Although Nadina,
damn, okay.
Nadina is kind of good. Keep Nadina in for Amalgam and stuff in there. That's pretty good.
Thanks. Okay.
No. I would be okay with the so Greasebot nerfed and back in, Cookie removed, and Chroma Wing back to its old.
You know what?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the old Chroma Wing, we talked about it before. It was always like borderline
busted.
Could be an issue, right? Because
they
introduced buddies. Chroma Wing kind of broke buddies. They introduced Cookie, right? That broke Chroma Wing, and there's probably other things that they might think about doing. I'm like, that would be really bad with Chroma Wing, right? Yeah, we can't really do that. So
we haven't asked, but like, what's your thoughts on buddies coming back?
This is a hypothetical question, or is
yeah.
confirmed somewhere?
No.
Yeah, I'd be super down for like a prize lobby-esque event, right? Where you say, let's because I think that is I think that is the least we can expect from buddies. Where, let's be honest, like, there were so many resources invested in making the buddy system, right? Like making a buddy for literally every hero, and then having to balance them. So I don't think they're not going to use that ever again. So I think at the very minimum, we're going to get like a buddy event where you have a Dark Moon Fair event, and then you have a buddy event, etc. So yeah, I'd be down for that. That'd be fun.
Sure. I'd also be somewhat down. Yeah. But some people, I was just asking, because some people hated the buddy system. But...
Oh yeah, that's true. There was a lot of pushback on buddies, which I also understand. It definitely made some heroes very linear. We're talking, say, a Vol'jin. Vol'jin was literally roll for Chroma, make a big Chroma.
Now, instead of heroes being linear, they're now unplayable. Perfect.
Yeah, that is an easy counter argument, right? you have the thing of like, oh, this hero was pretty linear with its buddy, and without its buddy, I don't even want it to exist, right?
Yeah.
So, there were definitely, like, I think Arana is a good example of a hero that just fell off a fucking cliff, right? Like, during the buddy meta, I was like, oh, this is kind of good. Like, Swamp Striker reroll, still like party elemental if Murlocs are out, and then the buddy is gone. It's like, I don't even want to touch this.
You know what I thought was hilarious? Like, as soon as we lost the buddies, I still saw people playing Aranas, and I always laughed I laughed so hard because I was like, they don't remember Arana without buddies.
They don't know how bad it was.
Yeah, so I'm just like, they just got free eighth. I'm just like, yeah, that's your fault, dude.
Especially with like Manted and Leroy being a card. It's like, why are you doing this to yourself? You're like spending your whole early game making a big Molten Rock that gets Leroy. So it's just,
kind of
not good. And there's a lot more heroes like that, right? That were really cool. I think like Ticketus, right, was an example of a hero that definitely felt a lot better.
Yeah.
Probably not the best example. It's a playable hero. But yeah, there were many other heroes that, like, I think Zeph, right? Zeph went from like very high quality, top tier pickable hero to like, I'll take a Zeph, I guess, right? So yeah. Anyways, wrapping it up. I think neither you or I am really opposed to the buddies, but it's also not like, oh, the game is terrible without buddies.
Sure.
A little easier like that.
I agree with that. Anyways, that will be it for us. Thank you guys for joining us. You can find us here in this section of the box, Hasp section. That's where we live these days. Feedback HSBG podcast email. You can also catch our Twitch and the YouTube. Check the YouTube for the Ty's Tavern vlog if you haven't seen that. I think that's pretty decent. And we'll catch you next week when they'll have a ton of changes. Woo! Spoilers. They're releasing a whole thing. I have no idea. Watch next week. They'll have something, and I'll be like, yeah, I knew it. I just called it into existence. But yeah. Anyways, that'll be it. I'll see you guys later. Take care, everybody.
Have a good one.